Mary Ostry here. We really wanted to call out the practical nursing program for receiving an absolutely exceptional pass rate on the National Council licensure examination for practical nursing, 99.9%. This far surpasses the national average of 84.5%, as well as Indiana's pass standard of 80%. Congratulations, Mary, to those of you who have been working so hard. Lest the staff be forgotten, the Commission has had a noteworthy month as well. You see a couple trophies and another award in front of you at the table. Recently, just in the last couple weeks at the Midwestern Higher Education Compact meeting, the middle award was given to Ken Sauer and also presented to State Senator Carlin Yoder, who both serve as members of the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. And it was an award honoring, as I mentioned to you last month, that Indiana was the first state in the nation to join the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement for online education. And so really leaders in this regard, and special thanks to Ken Sauer for all the work that he's doing. In addition, the other two awards in front of you were presented to the Commission for their 21st Century Scholars and ScholarTrack websites. We received the Award of Excellence, which is the highest honor available in the Communicator Awards. Both our websites were chosen out of over 6,000 entries for their innovative design and meaningful communication. So I hope you'll take a moment and look again at the websites. You probably have done that in the past. But I have to give special credit to both Jason Beers and Doug Lintner for the terrific work that he does for us on an ongoing basis, and for Jason's innovative style always. Some good news for the state too. I'm not sure if some of you may have had the opportunity to attend the Connexus Indiana breakfast yesterday morning. They bring together Ball State University's Center for Business and Economic Research. Some of you are probably familiar reading Mike Hicks' information that's in the IBJ nearly every week, and he released the 2014 Manufacturing Logistics Report for both Indiana and for the nation. Indiana continued to remain strong with an A grade in the manufacturing industry. We shared that category with only 4 other states, and also an A grade in logistics, once again with 4 other states, not necessarily the same 4 states. Of special importance to us, I think, for the work we do here is the area that's ranked as human capital. We improved slightly from a grade of a D to a C minus, which was actually indicated by an improvement in the first-year retention rates for degree and certificate students seeking students. The challenge remains, obviously. We don't want to be a C minus. We'd like to have our human capital move up. We know that this is the challenge for the state. It was clear at the event the other day that all eyes are focused on the human capital component of the work that we do to build Indiana's economy. Last, I hope that some of you had a chance to read or see some of the coverage in your communities about the College Success Coalition celebration. We met in the Rotunda earlier this week, and honored 15 additional counties for their work in being a county success coalition. This brings our number to 62. We are committed to having all 92 counties, and it's our goal to partner with them in the work in the upcoming year, and we hope that at least in the next year or 18 months we'll have all 92 counties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. I think I need to circle back. I think we need a motion to accept the resolutions for.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Your agenda book contains last meeting's minutes for your approval. The minutes are a combined version of the May 8 and May 19 meetings. I need a motion to approve these minutes, and I think there are some changes to be noted.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I gave the Secretary some changes in just the elaborations and things of wording, but minor.
Those are noted. Any other changes to the minutes?
Move approval of the revised minutes.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. The minutes pass. Thank you. Minutes are adopted. Well, last month we began a conversation about the overcoming hurdles to completion. continue this discussion with a public square focused on the Return and Complete initiative. Joining us for our discussion today is George McClellan, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management at Indiana University, Fort Wayne. Patrick Lane, Senior Policy Analyst and Project Coordinator with Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. And Jason Taylor, Postdoctoral Research Associate at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Thank you all for joining us today. Sarah Ansel is going to lead our discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sarah.
We had a pretty thorough discussion this morning about a plan to reach out to students in Indiana who are have some college but no degree and encourage them financially and otherwise to attend higher education and complete their degree or credential. We're hoping that this panel will take what is a one-page skeleton of a project plan and help us understand with more nuance and detail how other states have gone about this and how we might go about it in Indiana. So I'll start by asking a question of all three of you. What do you believe is the biggest hurdle for former students thinking about returning? Is it not being encouraged? Is it not having money to do so, not having time to do so, or something else that we've overlooked?
Well, thank you. Certainly, the factors we mentioned are important. I believe one of them is the most important. But also, I think you missed one in the list, and that is confidence. A lot of these folks who left, and the longer they're away, the less certain they are that they'll fit on campus, that they'll fit in, that they'll be okay there. So there's a question of confidence that isn't to be overlooked. But at least in my experience of working with these folks, it really is a money thing. They really want to come back. They have a reason. It's not a motivation question. It's a money question. And included in that is some of them may now, because of changes in federal regulations, they may have exhausted federal aid eligibility. Some of them are intimidated by FAFSA. That's a concern we have in lots of arenas, but with these adult learners, FAFSA is kind of scary. So I would say money. Of those factors, the number one inhibitor would be the perceptions about cost of return.
Sure, I'd second everything that George has said, and I think there's some recent research that financial barriers or the perception of financial barriers are at the top of the list. Some of the other research also suggests that concerns of time management and adding additional commitment to already busy lives, everybody has work, family, etc. commitments. In addition to how am I going to pay for this, how am I going to manage this while still taking the kids to soccer practice or doing this or that. And I think when you start to talk about policy approaches, things that you can do, you have to consider both the financial aspect, but also how are we going to make this as easy as possible logistically for adults. If you look at what some of the for-profit institutions have done, they are enrolling a significant number of adults. By and large, I think it's fair to say they cost more than public universities. But they are very, their messages are very targeted, and what they try to do is provide a better customer service approach. And I think that's something that we can learn from, and that a lot of states have adopted as they start to look at programs to bring adults back.
Yeah, I agree, and I think regarding the question, I don't think we have a lot of good theoretical models on sort of why students come back. We have a lot of research and evidence that support models on why students, enroll in college and then why students leave college. So I think, there were some of the policies and programs that now states are now pursuing helps provide some better data. In addition to funding, which I think is very important, which is important both to students deciding to go to college and while students depart college. I think the policies that institutions establish are very important. And also when I began my career at a for-profit institution, classes were structured very purposefully to allow students who have to work a daily day to have the option at the undergraduate level to finish their degree in the evening, and I think that was a very successful model. So I think the policies and programs universities establish.
Thank you all for those insights. looking at the confidence piece and then merging that with what was of great interest to our commission members this morning in terms of messaging, communication, encouragement. I'd like to turn to Patrick, who's done a lot of work looking at what other states and universities have done on the outreach side. And can you just sort of go over what else is being done around the country on this front, and how are other states and universities encouraging students to return?
Sure. Maybe first is a little bit of background. I'll explain where our work started and where we're coming from on this. The Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, is WICHE, manages the Adult College Completion Network, which is a Lumina-funded project that really seeks to bring together all those across the country who are working on adult completion programs. So that includes other state governments, cities, institutions, workforce boards, local governments, kind of a whole realm of stakeholders. And I think that's an important frame through which to start, because a lot of the lessons that will go on may not be from state governments. Some certainly are, but I think we can learn a lot from what cities and workforce boards are doing, particularly when we're thinking about outreach and messaging. The two main tracks in terms of identifying and conducting outreach that states and others have done is to start with data mining. I think that's contemplated in the Return to Complete effort. Looking at those students that meet certain criteria, certain credit threshold, possibly GPA, etc. It's well proven in a lot of different projects and programs that you can identify these students. You can run them through the National Student Clearinghouse to filter out those that have already completed a degree or transferred someplace else. Then you can use some of the third-party data aggregators to get clean and up-to-date contact information. This is a crucial step. Some folks that we've worked with have tried just with their own list to send out information, and they get a huge number of returns. College students who leave don't really keep the same addresses. So that's been an important step. But as a proof of concept, I think this is pretty straightforward, and there are a lot of different examples that you could cite where people have generated lists, tens of thousands of students that have reached a certain credit threshold and may be eligible for either receiving an associate's degree or going back and completing one pretty quickly. But that's only part of the picture. If you look at 700,000 students in Indiana with some college but no degree, certainly not all of them are in the state of the system. They may have attended private institutions, they may have come from another state. For whatever reason, they may not be there, they may not show up in the data mining. So any project would have to contemplate a broader outreach effort. There are different approaches here. Some places, Georgia, Louisville, other places, they've undertaken traditional television, billboard, etc. marketing campaign with very well-tested marketing messages. I've shared some of this with commission staff, and I'd be happy to provide that to you guys as well. These can get very expensive, but they do help broaden the reach. You have to get those people who are not in the data system as well. The messages tend to be ones that you might expect. The research from Georgia suggests that the monetary message about getting a better job, better life for your family is something that resonates with students. But some of the intrinsic messages, if you will, are also very important to these potential students. Things like finishing something that you started, setting a good example for your children, and that the university, the college that you're going back to cares about you as a student. Those things seem to resonate really well with the focus groups that they've done in Georgia, also in Texas. As I said, that's very expensive, and if you're looking at a multi-year effort, that would be a pretty hefty budget outlay. But other places have done less expensive marketing outreach, more in the informal range. Things like building a coalition, and it sounds like we have a strong coalition of county governments and others that this might be a place to start, that focus on creating a message that adults can go back to college. They can finish degrees, they can finish certificates that have value in the workplace and that help them meet their life goals. If you look at Louisville, Kentucky, they have a program called 55,000 Degrees that the mayor has championed. That's obviously a city-focused effort, but I think what's instructive about it is the extent of buy-in throughout the community around that effort. A lot of people in the city know about it because the mayor talks about it, the business leaders talk about it, chambers of commerce and others. So these are all the types of partners that can be enlisted to spread the message once the program is kind of developed and rolled out. Workforce boards and workforce agencies, I think, are another crucial place where you would run into a lot of adults who have some college degree. People coming into one-stop centers, a lot of them maybe close to a degree. Rutgers University and the National Association of Workforce Boards have done some work to provide training materials and kind of checklists for local one-stop officials so that they can identify these students and then work with institutions nearby to maybe push them into a degree program or an institutional certificate program if that makes sense for that student. And as I guess Jason alluded to, the outreach and the tactics and the messaging is important, but having the policies and practices that back it up are perhaps more important. If you market a message that says come back and finish your degree, some of the other states that have done that have not had success. If you market a message that's come back and finish a degree, we'll value your prior learning, we'll make it affordable for you. We have night and weekend classes. We have night and weekend student services. It seems unreasonable to expect that adults can't take classes during the day, but at the same time they can go to the financial aid office only between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday. Kentucky has rolled out as part of their competency-based education program 24/7 advising. It's always available, it's always online. Originally it was just part of their 2-year degree competency-based education program, but it was so popular that they have since rolled it out to all students. And these are the types of things when we talk about bringing the student back and addressing some of those time crunch questions that you have to address. States that have prepared marketing and outreach pushes but haven't backed up their policies have found that maybe they get a few phone calls, but there's nothing to entice an adult to come back beyond the initial messaging. You're not going to be able to get them back, you're not going to be able to help them overcome barriers. I think there are a lot of financial options that you can pursue as part of the marketing. Some states have put money into financial aid direct payments for adults. Oklahoma has found that they have a program called Reach Higher. They started with a $500 scholarship for near completeness from back to finish. They found that didn't really move the needle much. Once they got over $1,000, that seemed to generate a lot of interest. Connecticut, I don't know if you've seen, just recently they've introduced something, nobody has a great name for it yet, but it's essentially buy one, get one free, limit 3. They will pay for, after you register for one course as an adult and you're completed, they'll pay for the next course. Register for your 3rd course, they'll pay for the 4th course, and then they'll also pay for the 5th course. It's a little bit novel, I think, in state higher ed policy, but it's something that if you break it down into a message for adults, that's something that could resonate, it could at least pique some interest. Arkansas has dedicated significant money as part of their lottery scholarship specifically to adults with 75% of the credits necessary for a degree. So those are some options on the financial aid front, but I think it's fair to say that that's not always possible in every state fiscal climate. I think there are a lot of smaller steps that states can take and institutions can take that help alleviate some of the financial burden. This includes ensuring that adults get all of the benefits and tax credits that they're eligible for. Some of the research on public benefits suggests that adults, particularly low-income ones, leave a lot of money on the table. There are some federal resources, state resources, etc., for child care, tax credits, food assistance, etc. These things help lower the overall cost. There are some projects out there that are working at the community college level to ensure that adults are getting all the money to which they're entitled. Nevada found some success with payment plans. They found that particularly for working adults who were coming back, they had a big problem paying that lump sum tuition at the beginning of the semester. Unfortunately, board policy prevented them from collecting it in installments over the semester. People from the institutions brought that to the board as a barrier for adult students. The board was able to make the change, and we've seen some success there. There's been a lot of talk about competency-based education. I think that has the potential for reducing the financial burden on adults. Some of the funding models, it's essentially a subscription. You pay $99 or whatever for a certain time period. You take as many courses or competencies as you can fit in. I don't think that necessarily solves the problem for adults who don't have a lot of time. They may not be able to squeeze in $200 worth of work in a $100 period. So that's something where there's some promise, but I don't think it fits for every adult student. Open educational resources, we were talking before the session about, there's a student referenced in some of the latest articles in the Review of Higher Education. We went a semester without books and someone managed to pass. There's a Gates-funded project at some community colleges where they've really emphasized open educational resources. And there's some strong data that students are not passing classes because of the cost of textbooks. And that when you go to open educational resources, you can increase success rates and, importantly, not sacrifice quality. Tidewell Community College now has an entire degree program that's based on open educational resources that comes zero textbook costs. Higher learning assessment is another thing if you think about cost. A learning degree as the number of courses you have to take times the cost per course. Anything you can do to reduce the number of courses that an adult has to take without sacrificing quality is something that alleviates some of their financial concern. A few other highlights that might be worth considering. Tennessee is a state that has gone very heavily into outcomes-based funding. They offer a 40% grading bonus for adult students who come back and finish throughout the formula, along with different performance metrics. Adults count for 1.4 students. And I think more broadly, when we're talking about resources are limited everywhere. If you look at the different potential collaborators throughout Indiana, there are resources there. Workforce boards have some money. Chamber of Commerce have some money, have some ability to conduct outreach to help carry this message forward. But some of the research on collaborative efforts has really shown what you need to make these things successful is a strong coordinated body of they call it backbone organization and research. And I think as this, the Return and Complete initiative develops, that's a particular role that the Commission could play. To help develop relationships with employers that can adopt education-friendly policies, that can adopt tuition assistance that research shows is beneficial to the business's bottom line. There are a lot of different ways that you can bring resources together to help focus attention on adults and help alleviate some of the barriers that prevent them from returning.
Thank you so much for that. Within Indiana, we certainly have a lot of work being done in this front, and I know a number of our institutions are reaching out to students who have stopped out, encouraging them to come back, sort of on an institution-by-institution basis. Really fortunate today to be able to highlight some work being done at IPFW with a new initiative called the Comeback Initiative. George, since you're heading that up, could you just tell us about the initiative and some of the early results you've seen and what you've learned so far?
Thank you. And thanks to Chairman Kushner, Commissioner Rogers, and members of the Commission. Special thanks to Liz and Sarah for making sure I didn't get too awfully lost on the way in, and thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I am a facilitator of a conversation. One of the strengths of our program is that it's truly collaborative, and I'll talk more about that. But, so I thought it would be helpful to set a context. IPFW's mission is to play a leadership role in serving the higher education needs of Northeast Indiana. Part of that is serving adult learners, right? And so we see this got started as a conversation about our mission, really, how well we were fulfilling the mission. We're very happy to note that the average age of our students is getting younger, and that our students are getting more full-time. That has to do with our mission of housing and other stuff. But we're a little worried that that may mean that we are not paying as much attention to the adult learner market as maybe we ought to be. So there was a conversation about, are we making sure we're keeping our eye on all the markets, all the folks that we're supposed to serve? And then, of course, we have an interest in supporting the state's stated policy goal of having more people with degrees in Indiana, right? So that's the context in which this conversation came up. It was part of a broader conversation about how do we line these things up with what our programs and services are. During the summer of 2013, we were sitting around after a meeting on another subject and talking about what could we do to bring folks back who've been away for a while. We landed on the idea of something big that had a wow factor, that also had a sense of urgency. Right? We wanted to create this notion. We landed on the idea of a significant level of financial support. And then because like a lot of regional institutions, we don't have a lot of institutional aid in the sense of cash dollars, but we can do some things with essentially in-house scholarships, if you want to call them that, reductions, discounting, if you want to call it that. We fleshed the idea out in the fall of 2013, and we got approval and implementation going in the spring of 2014. One of the things we recognized is that we could attract these learners back to campus without adding to our cost of operation. So there wouldn't be extra costs we would have to cover. We have open seats in upper division courses now. So we're not going to have to hire extra faculty or extra staff or, so there's no operational overhead to attracting these learners back. We do also know that people leave for a lot of reasons, right? Some people leave, spouses, partners, life, whatever. Job takes them away, they lose interest, they thought they wanted to be whatever, an advertising person, and that turned out to bore them silly, so they walked away from that. People leave for a lot of reasons, but we honestly believe that, as I mentioned earlier, one of the primary reasons they don't come back, when life sort of works itself out for them, and they get to a place where they think, oh, I really wish I had finished that, or I'd like to go back and finish it, then it's time and money that kind of can get in the way. We're good, but there's not a lot we can do with time. That's helping them manage life rules, which we can coach on. But what we thought we could affect was money. So we wanted a one-time wow factor that would draw folks back in, and a structure that would, I really don't like this word, but I used it, incentivize them to continue to participation. In our mind, there was no point in drawing people back for one semester, unless that happened to give them a degree. We want to draw them back and then keep them there through degree completion. That's what led us to a scholarship that's equal to 50% of tuition, as long as you would come back in the fall of 2014 and remain continuously enrolled through degree completion. So this is not a one-semester scholarship. This is a come back, stay enrolled, finish your degree, and from when you come back in this fall semester until you finish, you will have this scholarship available to you. You don't embark on something like this without talking to attorneys and accountants and relevant businesses, and you know what that's like. So we too talk to attorneys and accountants and policy people, and wanted to, and had to get approval both at an institutional level but also at a system level. And so I did want to particularly recognize Jim Almond, who was really supportive and helpful in the review of this program. Jim from the West Lafayette campus. Like a lot of what we do at IPFW, this is a collaborative effort. We involve the Bursar, the Registrar, the Advisors Council, our Financial Aid Office, Admissions Office, and the folks in General Studies, because they have a particular expertise in working with adult students, and they have some real customer service skill sets. So when that confidence issue comes up, they work with that audience a lot more, and they know how to read those books and really be helpful. So in that regard, I want to recognize both the collaboration across campus, and I think that's essential. If you do tiers or silos, that further frustrates these adult learners. If they have to decode the intricacies of your institution, they're out of it. They've got enough complications in life. So you need a process that gives them mentors or guides or assistants, if you will, so that they don't get hung up in these sort of bureaucratic backwaters, right, that we can inadvertently create. And toward that end, I do want to recognize both Angela Williams and Deb Compton from our General Studies program who are really using this. So we hit on a set of eligibility criteria as we're going through them. So for us, we wanted folks who were halfway home with the 120 credit hour cap. So we picked 60 credit hours. We wanted people who were in good academic standing. We didn't want to bring back folks on academic probation. That didn't seem really productive. So you have to have a 2.0 GPA. We exist to serve the people of Indiana, so you got to be an Indiana resident. You can't have earned a bachelor's degree anywhere else. Why should we discount your second bachelor's degree? The state should help citizens get one. I'm not sure the state is obligated to help you get 6. And that you can't have been enrolled since the spring of 2012. And we made it really, really clear this is a one-time deal because we didn't want to inadvertently set up an incentive where a student would go, I'm going to lay out for a year and come back for that 50% deal. That sounds pretty good. This is a one-time, one shot. You come back in the fall of 2014 kind of effort. So that helped also create the urgency. We came up with some themes, and they were not dissimilar to the ones you identified. They fall into generally 2 categories. There's no time like now, and also now is your time. Because a lot of these folks left because of kids or spouses or a job or somebody else's agenda that they sacrificed for, right, by walking away from college. And so part of what we would say to them is, no, now's your time. You can come back now. We generated a list, scrubbed it against other sources, came up with 2,500 people who were eligible. We used earned media news coverage. We sent out a letter inviting these people. We positioned this as congratulations. You are one of the you've all gotten these you were one of the select few who was eligible. But I mean that's genuine, but it was also we thought the right way to pitch it. It's a way of saying we believe you can do this. There were 2 rounds of postcard follow-ups, and there will be a round of phone calls right around the July 4th. We wanted to have multiple ways of communication, get the idea in front of them, provide them with an opportunity to make inquiry, provide them with reassurance that they can really do this. We expect that this will be a late deciding group of people. They've got a lot of things they have to figure out in their lives. So we expect that this last round of calls will trigger another wave. A couple of the goals that we had for this project. I did want to mention that one of the things we didn't expect was walk-ins. So we looked at a 10-year window, just because you have to draw a line somewhere. We pulled a list for 10 years back. We had people from 15 and 20 years back who were talking to neighbors, walking in saying, my neighbor got this letter, am I eligible? And I found that, we just didn't imagine that. And that was really cool to get these walk-ins. So for us, in terms of goals, we really don't, this will be revenue neutral. The tuition that we bring in, the half of it, on an accounting side, sets off the half that we're discounting. Right? So from an accounting perspective, you're neutral. Now you improve your cash flow if you really believe that those dollars that you're getting, you weren't going to get anyway. Those people aren't going to walk in your door. So you've upped your cash flow, but from a revenue standpoint, you're neutral. We're fine with that because we just see this as part of our mission. We really didn't do this. We could have said, it may work for some people to say, well, $1,000 is enough to get you back. And then this would be a revenue plus. But we were really just trying to get the degrees done. And we wanted that wow factor. Based on a pilot program that was done a couple of years ago, we have reason to expect that we can get 75 people in this program. I had an Indy Star reporter say to me, well, that's 2,500 people. You're only expecting 75. That's not very many. I said, if we change the lives of 75 people, and we spent no money from the people of Indiana, kind of sounds like a cool deal to me, you know? So yeah, it's 75 people, but if all of us did this, if we all got together and found our way, and this is just one model, but if we all did it together across the system of the state, Now we're talking hundreds of people, right? And the last goal is the one I already mentioned, which is we don't want to just bring a bunch of people back and crush them a second time. That's not the goal. We want them to come back and succeed. So there's a lot of support. Every college has identified, each of our academic colleges has identified a lead person to not only talk to these students coming in the door, but to stay with them throughout the time they're here, to be their contact. In addition to general studies being the sort of central coordinator. Okay, so numbers. So far to date, we've had 180 inquiries from qualified candidates. One of the other lessons we learned is no matter how many times you describe the qualifications, people want to come back. I don't blame them. Half off tuition is a lot of money. So we've had 25 non-qualified people. And so you end up having those conversations. My GPA is 1.8. Won't you bend the rules? Sorry. We have friends in other universities and other places. You can come see us and you won't be eligible. I mean, we don't just say, no, you can't. We talk about alternatives, but this program has these standards. Those 180 qualified candidates have so far 53 of the 180 have actually applied and been accepted and will shortly, a few of them have registered, but next week is when their registration period will start. So we'll actually track credit hours. Something else we found really interesting was a third of those people are coming back to general studies, whether that was their original home major or not. And we kind of figured a lot of them would. But what that means is 2/3 of them are coming to the other colleges, which we find encouraging. That lets the whole university be invested rather than, oh, that's just a general studies thing. Everybody is seeing applicants as a result of this program. And our reentry category, which is the adult learner category, is up 29.8% the applicants over a year ago, and that is almost exactly to the person these folks. So that's a little bit about what we've tried to build, and I appreciate the opportunity to come out to work with my colleagues and to share and learn from others, so thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that success story, and the vision of this is really commendable. So thank you for sharing that. And I look forward to taking those lessons and expanding them into a bigger statewide push. So we've talked about finance, we've talked about outreach. Let's talk a little bit about what becomes a little more difficult when you're trying to do this on a statewide level, which is the credit and the degree and sort of how that applies when you come back. So turning to Jason, you've done a lot of work with the Credit When It's Due initiative. A lot of this revolves around taking credit that's been earned and applying it toward an associate degree. So what can you tell us about the work you've done and sort of how Indiana can learn from that?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share some of our research in this area. So I'll describe some background on Credit When It's Due. Credit When It's Due, which I'll refer to as CWID for short, was launched in 2012 when 5 foundations funded 12 states to develop reverse transfer programs and policies. And then in early 2014, 3 additional states were funded. So what do I mean by reverse transfer? I think Sarah, you summarized it. It's really policies and programs designed to confer the associate's degree to students when they meet the requisite degree requirements. And it primarily involves the transfer of university credits, sometimes including upper division credits, to the community college for the purpose of awarding a degree. So our research center, which is the Office of Community College Research and Leadership at the University of Illinois, and Professor Deborah Bragg, who's the principal investigator on this grant, and unfortunately couldn't be here today. We are the research partner for the 15-state initiative, and we're studying both the implementation of the initiative and the impact of the initiative. So my comments are certainly from an observer and a researcher perspective. So I'll note that I understand part of the purpose of this meeting is to consider policies and programs that encourage students to come back, and that's not necessarily what we've seen in Credit When It's Due so far, although there is one state that is doing this, and I'll talk but when states were awarded the grant, it was clear there was a focus on the student population, sort of the traditional transfer pathway from a 2-year to a 4-year institution. But I think there are some similar lessons for returning adults, and also some pieces you might be interested in as Indiana considers reverse transfer. So I want to draw your attention to just a couple of data points, and these are sort of relate to the need and the rationale for reverse transfer. So data from the beginning post-secondary students longitudinal study and a more recent study from the National Student Clearinghouse show that only about 20% of students who transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year institution do so with an associate's degree. Only about 20% bring the degree with them, so that tells us there's a large proportion of these type of traditional transfer students who bring who have a college credential. We also know that many transfer students will never make it to the bachelor's degree. And I brought up a copy. We did a baseline study with these 12 states, and I can send you an electronic copy of this as well, where we looked at a cohort of historical transfer students, these 2 to 4 year students, and we followed them for 4 years after transfer, and we found that about 50% of those students had no bachelor's degree 4 years after transfer, despite the fact that about 67% of them transferred with about 45 credits or more. So one way to conceptualize reverse transfer is sort of as an insurance policy, if you will, for those students who may stop out, who may be the students who you are encouraging to return and come back. And so these are likely students that may be impacted by this return initiative. Another plausible hypothesis is that students who receive an associate's degree after transfer en route to the baccalaureate degree may be more likely to persist to a bachelor's degree. And so there may be some type of motivational or psychological effect that influences students' progress towards the bachelor's degree, and thus influencing ultimately the bachelor's degree attainment rate. So, reverse transfer is very new, and we don't really have any evidence to support or deny that hypothesis. We're looking at that with these 15 states, so we'll be following students for years after they receive the associate's degree, looking at longitudinal enrollment completion data and potentially enrollment data. So I want to spend a little bit of time, most of my time here, talking about how reverse transfer works, and based on our ongoing research, and I'll try to provide you with some examples from some of the 15 states that are doing this work. And I'll comment on some of the policies and decisions that institutions and states might consider as they develop and implement these types of policies. One caveat, we've seen a lot of variation in implementation, as you can imagine, among 15 states with different higher education contexts. And even though these grants were awarded in late 2012, policies are still being tested and evolving, they're still changing. So programs and policies that we saw early in the initiative are still changing. So it's a little early to sort of say what works and what doesn't work in this initiative. So we have identified a framework for implementation that includes 5 major processes, and if you go to our website, there are profiles of all of the states that outline what the process and how this framework operates in each state. And those 5 processes are student identification, the consent process, transcript exchange, degree audits, and degree conferrals. So the first is student identification, and this involves states and institutions really setting eligibility criteria. Who will be eligible for this program? These range from community college residency requirement, earning a specific number of cumulative college credits, such as 50, 60, or 70 credits, being in good academic standing, not having a financial hold, and in some cases meeting certain general education requirements that an institution or state decides is appropriate. So these are really the parameters on who gets offered the opportunity to participate in the program. And at a minimum, we see across all states that students really need to meet a minimum residency requirement at the community college, which generally is about 15 to 20 credits that the student must have. And then, of course, they haven't already earned an associate's degree. But we think it's important, and I think we're learning, we're investigating this, how these eligibility requirements really determines who's in and who's out. We're interested not only in who is eligible but who's not eligible and for what reasons, especially the equity implications for low-income students and students of color, for example. The second process is the consent process, and this is, I think, pretty relevant to returning adults because there are some interesting similarities, but this really refers to the ways in which students or institutions and states reach out to students to obtain their consent to participate, and the primary impetus for this is the federal FERPA legislation, which has been a major issue in the 12 states, primarily because many universities don't have, although not all, don't have the legal authority to send the transcripts to community colleges for the purpose of reverse transfer without the student's consent. Although we've heard from several states that they've received multiple conflicting interpretations from their legal counsel in the context of reverse transfer about FERPA. Recently, all the 15 states were in Atlanta for a cross-state convening, and the Department of Education representative was there. And I would recommend most of the states have consulted the Department of Ed and as far as how FERPA might be applied, and I can see this extending to returning students who have transcripts from other institutions, both within the state or even within the same system. Does the university or community college have the authority to send students' transcript to another institution? What we've learned from our research is that most institutions have adopted an opt-in policy whereby the student has to actively consent to have their transcript sent or degree conferred. But we do have some institutions, and one state system in particular, that has an opt-out policy, whereby if the student does not actively consent, then consent is assumed and the student's degree is conferred. So let me comment on students' response to the consent offer. So how effective is this? The data on this are just beginning to come into our office, and so we don't have an analysis of that yet, but anecdotally, the consent rate ranges from about 20% to 50%, with most institutions and states are closer to 20%. And states have expressed frustration about this. I think our observation when documenting this is how aggressive states and institutions are in contacting students. We've multiple methods, multiple types of communications. Anecdotally, at least, we seem to see some larger numbers of responses from students. One state in particular is looking at a pop-up screen for students when they walk in to register. So, a lot of the states are focused on students who are really currently enrolled at the university. So the students still on the university campus. So there are ways to engage the student at the university to offer them the opportunity to participate. And at the other end, several states are thinking and considering how to sustain this, and they are integrating consent into a transfer student admissions application. So when a transfer student applies to a university, they consent at that point, or they're offered the opportunity to, and it's on their record, so the university can send transcripts anytime in the future. So Arkansas is the state right now that's really aggressively targeting students, and they just began their campaign this week. I spoke with someone in Arkansas yesterday, and what they've done is they've looked at their state records going back to 1993. They've identified 6,000 students who have completed at least 75% of the associate's degree, and they've employed a firm who will find contact information for those students and will send out a letter to these students multiple times, I believe, and which will direct students to our website where they'll consent to have their transcripts sent to a community college. So the third process is the transcript exchange, and we were talking earlier before the meeting about how technology is extremely important. And one thing that we've learned from this process is the state technology infrastructure and capacity, data capacity to move student transcript level information is extremely critical. Some states, Oregon, Hawaii, Ohio, for example, have centralized systems where student transcript level information is among public institutions moves electronically. And I understand, I think Indiana may be considering a parchment as an option for that. Other states, such as Missouri and Michigan, have no centralized process for exchanging transcripts, and there's quite a heavy load at the institutional level is some of what we're hearing. Several states have actually used their grant funding to invest pretty heavily in technology for this purpose. Colorado just is using parchment, for example. Related is the fourth process, which is the degree audit process, and that is also highly dependent on technology and capacity within the institution and the state, as well as states' course equivalency tables. So we see the degree audit process occurring at multiple levels. So in some states, Minnesota is an example of this. The state, their system, the Minsky system, houses course level information. So the centralized systems, they audit essentially an unofficial degree audit to see who is very close to the degree, and then they send that information to the university and colleges, and a consent is obtained and the process proceeds. In Arkansas, Hawaii have similar processes. A counterexample is Missouri, where the degree audit occurs really just at the community college level, and it relies on institutional level degree audit systems. And in some cases, these are done by hand. Related is course equivalency tables. We've heard a lot of states have invested time in this. New York reported to us within the SUNY, the State University of New York system, that approximately 45,000 courses have been articulated as a result of their grant. So Colorado has done something similar, where there's an intensive effort to update these outdated course equivalency tables. And then I think the final process is degree conferral. So students who are eligible, are awarded degrees and contacted. There's also some states pursuing these near completers. So when you audit a degree, you not only see who's eligible, but who's not and why. So some states are investigating those near completers, similar to the Project Win-Win model, and they're sending communications to those students about what they need to do to complete the degree. I'll mention one thing about marketing and communication. We've seen sort of mixed approaches to this in states. So some states are really focused on just identifying who's eligible right now. Other states it's been a key part of their strategy. They've developed some creative marketing campaigns, developing posters, videos, social media, reverse transfer logo, press releases, to educate the public about and students about what reverse transfer is, and really the value of an associate's degree. Some states are really focusing on, if I'm a student, who's en route to the bachelor's degree, why should I pursue an associate's degree? So Colorado has a website called Degree Within Reach, and it is specifically for this purpose, where students and the public can learn about reverse transfer. Additionally, states are experimenting with how to communicate reverse transfer to students. So when the university, for example, contacts students to consent, they will mention why this is important, the value of an associate's degree, and the labor market payoff. Right now, as of March 2014, across the 12 states that started in 2012, there were about 3,000 associate degrees that have been conferred so far across the 12 states. Our research will continue to document this as it proceeds. I just want to end by saying that we do think this initiative is it's more than degree production. We really are seeing some systems changes in this initiative that we quite honestly didn't expect when we came into it, but we're seeing really system changes that accommodate the reality of student transfer and student mobility. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. In Indiana, we've moved our associate degree production to the two-year colleges. We've been very few associate degree offerings at the 4 institutions. So I'll pose a particular issue and just ask any of you if you react to it, just with some brief or initial thoughts. I'm getting on this issue quite a bit. So if a student has most recently attended a four-year institution, never attended a community college, gotten enough credit, 60 plus credits, so they could be given an associate degree. How would we in Indiana go about accomplishing that in the best interest and lowest cost for the student, understanding their academic residency requirements and other things related to sort of actual transfer from a four-year institution to a two-year institution?
I'll start just drawing from the initial 12 states. We've not seen any in students who only have credits from the university. We've not seen any community colleges say we're going to start awarding credits to those students. We do have 3 states where the universities have the authority to confer associate's degrees: Arkansas, Minnesota, and Florida, and we do see those universities actively awarding associate's degrees to this particular student population. I would say the biggest issue in this context is the residency requirement, and I know Indiana is a higher learning commission state, and several other states are as well, Missouri, Minnesota, and the Higher Learning Commission recently changed their policy. It used to state that students needed to earn the last 15 or a certain proportion of their credits from the last institution that they attended that confers the degree. Their new policy says that, and I wrote it down here, typically institutions will require that a minimum of 30 of the last 120 credits earned from a bachelor's degree and 15 of the 60 credits for the associate's degree will be credits at that institution itself, though arrangements with other accredited institutions or through contractual relationships approved by the commission. So what we've seen in the 12 states is really the states adhering to or following, I would say, their regional accreditor criteria. Although some institutions do have they set the criteria higher than the 15 credits that the requires.
Say that one more time for me, that you have to earn.
Sure. So this is under the assumed policy B1B. And it states that typically institutions will require that at a minimum 30 of the 120 credits earned for the bachelor's degree and 15 of the 60 credits for the associate's degree, that they be credits earned at the institution itself. Although there's a clause in there about contractual agreements, and I don't really know how that's playing out in the states in the context of reverse transfer of contractual.
Okay, so I'm going to take off my IPFW hats. What I'm about to say does not necessarily reflect the IPFW views. And I will put on the hat of a guy who has a PhD in higher education, so this is my academic discipline. I don't personally believe that it ought to be a goal to encourage the earning of an associate's degree simply because the value of an associate's degree varies widely by discipline, and there are some fields in which earning an associate's degree is an extraordinary investment. It's never a bad investment, right? But it has, in varying disciplines, has varying degrees of repayment value, if you will. So I guess what I wanted to put in was a word of caution about a universal assumption that the simple reverse transfer in and of itself is a desirable goal. So I'm not sure it really helps. I do believe, and I was interested in your comment about the data from your group, and I believe there are some studies out there that where the value of the associate's degree for somebody who's doing reverse transfer as a milestone to the bachelor's degree, there is a real positive. For these students who go part-time, it can be 5 and 6 years, and they're waiting for that celebration. And many of them are first gens, and they weren't terribly committed in the first place because they may not sure how college will help them or what college is going to be like. And so if we Higher Ed Week, can create a celebration and an incentive, a significant milestone along the way, that's where I really, and in certain disciplines, that's where I really see the value of reverse transfer. But in the scenario you originally laid out, gee, they've never been to a four, that kind of thing. I'm not sure that ought to be a universal rule, frankly. The other concern that we need to have as a state is that we not create a conflicting policy problem where, because of the way we do funding, we encourage degree awarding, and then we exacerbate tension between 4-year and 2-year institutions over who gets credit for these degrees. That is solvable, but it will have to be solved as part of the discussion. Okay, so I'll give W that back on. But that part was just the scholar guide.
Thank you for the switching hats on that. And certainly the associate degree route for the students originally pursuing a bachelor's degree is one path, one pathway that we want to be able to offer to these returning workers and adults when we reach out to them. I'll ask all of you to weigh in on this final question. What other paths would be most friendly or successful for adults who are bringing some credit with them and coming back, understanding of the varying academic and career goals?
Well, I think, and to build a little bit on what you just said, part of the starting point is that adult learners themselves and those with some credit but no degree are a very diverse group. There are some that an associate's degree is the right pathway. A certificate may be a perfect pathway for them. There have been some very successful projects, Goodwill and the American Association of Community Colleges, to push some of these people into a certificate. To kind of mangle metaphors, there's no silver bullet that you need to develop as many different tools and as many different pathways for these individuals as possible. One of some of the documentation we got beforehand talked about whether these people should go to the institution from which they came originally, and I would strongly encourage this to be an open effort. The institution that was maybe right or maybe not right for this person originally is probably not necessarily the right institution for them now. A statewide effort focused on statewide goals has to keep the needs of the student in mind over the needs of the institutions. Depending on institutional cooperation, collaboration with the state culture, it's been very difficult in other states. In some states, the institutions say that's our student, even though we obviously didn't serve them very well before because they had to walk away for this reason or that reason. Other states, they've had surprising levels of cooperation. They've had re-entry coordinators similar to the guides that George was talking about. Get a student on the line and they say, this is what I want to do, these are the credits I've done. And you say, no, you need to talk to the person down the road at an institution. I think that's the path you have to pursue. I think looking at the residency policy, I would focus on the second half of it more than the first. There are schools that have, not completely, but for the most part, done away with residency requirements. There are, I wouldn't call it a loophole because that sounds shifty, but there are ways to fairly award credit to award degrees that don't require somebody to come and take 15 or 30 credits in the institution. Oklahoma's managed to do that. I think workplace-based pathways, to go back to that, to look at what some of your employers might need, what some of the career progressions are, and the credentials they require is another way to look at this. I know the National Association of Manufacturers has done a lot of work in Indiana, identifying manufacturing pathways and stacking credentials that lead eventually to an associate's degree. In the health field, they've done that all the way up to BAs. So I think developing as many of these different tools, particularly with the very aggressive goal that's being laid out, getting 300,000 of your some college no degree folks to come back and finish degrees. I think it's feasible, but it's going to require a lot of different tools.
I think pick up a couple of key pathways. I think Sarah was a really smart way to ask the question because it's not one answer, right? I mean, these are different groups of people. I also really like, I'll put it in different contexts. It's a miracle on 34th Street. You need to go down to Macy's and buy that, and don't buy it at Gimbel's. I think that's the film, right? I do think that it will take that kind of an approach where we're all focused on helping the learners, and sometimes IPFW is not the best answer for people. Sometimes it's Ivy Tech, and sometimes it's something else, and we all need to be able to do that. I think to a certain extent we do, but it ought to be a priority for us. And this will be my last suggestion today. I have a PhD, I never stop. Here's a place where I think Indiana can be a pioneer. I believe that there's value in experience and that it ought to be credentialed. I don't necessarily believe it ought to be called a degree, because I think a degree ought to mean a certain kind of thing. But I don't think a degree is better than a credential for experience. I think they both have value. Indiana could play a real leadership role for our citizens and in the country were it to pioneer a serious credential for adult, would be particularly attractive for adult learners whose lives are so rich. They've been leaders, they've been parents, they've been all kinds of stuff. And we just don't have a great way to pull that together and say, that has value and here's the credential for it. That means the employers are going to have to talk, it means the universities have to talk, certainly the students have to talk. Nobody in the country is doing that really well. They're all talking it to death. Indiana could lead. That's a spot where, with some vision and some commitment, we could be a difference maker.
I'll just, one comment that I think, we saw this in the Project Win-Win effort, but the type of analytics that might be conducted on why, what are the things, what are the credits and what are the requirements that students are missing. So what sort of, in other words, what are the barriers to them finishing the degree from a credit perspective, but also from a, legitimate academic holds and financial holds if students owe a lot of money. So what are those barriers, identifying those and then creating pathways, whether it's online courses, Project Win-Win identified math, are there certain math courses that might be really useful to offer online that would really help a lot of students fulfill certain degree requirements. So thinking creatively and using analytics to understand why, what are the gaps, what are students really missing is important.
Any questions from our commission members?
I've got a question. First, thank you very much for your comments. You started out by saying you thought all three of you financial was probably the most important. This is anecdotal, but we had a program we paid for our employees' education for people supposed to go on and it doesn't really motivate. And we asked the why. It's always good if there's a reason, and so then we said, hey, we think we need a reason. If you keep going through the whys, it's all the other things you all were talking about. It's the barriers. It's the what we don't. Yeah, you all say I should, and maybe so I said yes first, but I really don't want to do it. I don't want to make the sacrifice. I don't want to spend the evenings. I don't want to spend the weekends. I really don't know if my life really going to be better if I get that degree. You can chalk it off, but am I going to get paid more? Am I going to change my job? You want me to change my job? So in a couple of cases, we put incentives in front of it, which is not like a whole lot. I will tell you the case where we pay for somebody's a graduate degree, and they all end up being senior officers. I have more people volunteering for that than you can imagine. But the issue is how do you get through the 5 whys with people who really get down to motivating them to go to this, because it's really a motivation thing as opposed to just saying, yeah, I'd like to do it.
I don't think we could manufacture motivation. We can help people discover it. You can't give it to them, right? Part of what we need to do is talk to people about both the market benefit of the degree. I think there are a lot of people who look at it and say, I already have a good job, I have a good life, I like my kids, right? But what are the other benefits, non-market benefits, health, quality of life? There's a lot of non-market benefits that I think we could sell to people. And I don't mean like car salesmen, slick, inappropriate. So that's a car salesman to people. Snake oil salesman, that's the phrase I'm looking for. Didn't mean to disparage car salesmen. So I think we have to talk about both the market and non-market benefits to that. But I also have to, I said the people I talk to really want to come back. That's because the people who talk to me want, right. So I think what you said is probably true. And I guess my answer to you is you can't give somebody motivation. You can help them find it, but you can't give it to them.
And I think your anecdotal evidence is fairly spot on. If you look at some of the data on veterans completion, there was just a big report out that did a terrific job looking at the data. Veterans had tremendous financial benefits to pay for tuition. When the completion rates came out, there was a lot of head scratching. They weren't bad, but they also weren't as high as many people expected. I think there has to be some realism. But the perception that people have of college, that this is a bunch of 19-year-olds sitting there talking about, what they talk about these days. But that's where you get into some of the marketing messages and some of the ideas that this is something there are other adults like me. When Georgia did their market research, they found that's one of the things that's really important. That adults go back, see others like them, see that the institution cares about them. And then certainly not everybody's going to come back even when there is money on the table, but linking that to career advancement, linking that to personal fulfillment, I think that's something that can happen over time. But it is surprising to hear that quite a bit, that this company has full tuition reimbursement, full tuition assistance, even if they're paying up front. So I think that's something that could be part of a bigger marketing outreach push.
And it's not just getting them, it's keeping them. I do want to throw this in because we've talked a lot about what staff can do, but faculty who really value life experience in the classroom and let those people feel like that it's valued. It's true of any student. I do some work with Native American communities. If you're a Native student and you come into a classroom and you get no message or no signal that your culture matters or your tribal traditions matter, then you're less likely to be engaged, right? Well, it's true of adult learners too. So if you create a classroom where the fact that you've lived a great life and raised a family and done these amazing things is brought into the classroom, then you're more likely to persist. So that's a role that the faculty can play, is helping find ways, like they do for other learners, to value what these students bring in.
And this may not be feasible at every company, but some folks have had success offering on-site classes. Google's done that with some of their certificate work. And if you think about, yes, that's convenient, but then we go back to the barriers. How do I manage this with taking my kids to soccer, with getting home, spending time with my husband and wife for dinner? Class is there, it's on my lunch break. That's something that can help reduce some of those things. That's where institutions and companies will have to show a little flexibility.
Yeah, I think if you extend sort of what we know from why individuals, and I guess you could think high school students, tend to go to college initially, and if you look at the college choice literature and those models, peer influences, culture, those things matter a lot. So what are the communities, the families of the employees who are currently working? How do they value college? What do they think about college? So I think Lynda has launched this community partnership for attainment initiative, and they're engaging broad stakeholder groups. But I think a piece of that is getting really engaging local communities and families to discuss the value of college, not just educate, but to engage and discuss.
Have you seen the South New Hampshire commercial where the girl says, "I'm so proud of you, Dad"? Right? Okay, well then there's all the evidence you need because you all noticed that nodding, right? And that's the message. Like when the family will say it matters, then that's another really big contributor.
I think we have to, for everybody who's happy in their job and they're doing this for some other reason other than economic advancement, there are a lot of that 737,000 who are not happy in their job and who have not fulfilled, and they are disappointed in the way life has turned out for them, and they are looking for a leg up. So, this is back to our segmenting our message and not being able to, it's very different to those who are working in environments that, maybe they want that extra step up. But there are some people who still need, they went back to work after the Great Recession, but many of them went back to work at jobs that paid them less money than what they had before. Now, would a degree now make a difference in terms of them getting themselves back to where they were or going to the next step up? So it speaks to really needing to segment our message to this very diverse adult population, of which many of them will be, still people who have not quite achieved where they want to be in life. Now, maybe people who are over the age of 50, we may be looking at something different than people who are between the ages of 30 and 45 or 50, who have 20 or 30 more years to be employed and need something better for themselves and their families to get there. So it's a complicated issue. You guys have helped us a lot to sort of look at some of these complications and just the process of how you put in place something like this. It gives us a lot to work on.
And along those lines, the plus 50 population is a huge group, especially because of the recession. They now have to stay in the workforce a lot longer than they were planning. And what do they need? They need some sort of a new career very quickly. In a lot of cases, so certificates, the American Association of Community Colleges found that was a huge market. To your other point about people who aren't happy in their jobs, this gets down into the nitty-gritty of the marketing, but Texas discovered the best place to place billboards advertising their degree completion stuff was on the way home from on the way to.
Was it a long day?
It's a long day.
Any other questions or comments for our panelists? Well, thank you very much, George, Patrick, Jason. Thank you for your time and your insight. We're going to move on to our business items on our agenda now. As the panelists have clearly articulated the importance of accessibility of higher education for a returning student with some college but no degree, we now have the opportunity as a commission to adopt a directive to launch the Return and Complete initiative. We've all seen the proposed directive and have had an opportunity to discuss the initiative in our working session. Is there any other discussion on this? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is adopted. Thank you very much. As part of a recently deployed series of reports, the Commission provides K-12 and other higher education stakeholders with more information about Indiana students' college access and performance so that over time we can collectively highlight successes and work together to tackle remaining challenges. The Commission is ready to release the next set of college readiness reports. I'd like to invite Stacy Townsley, our new Associate Commissioner for Information and Research, to present these findings. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Well, as a new transplant Hoosier and a new member of the Commission staff, it has been an eye-opening experience to work on these college readiness reports. And I can tell you alone, based on the number of emails and phone calls in the time that I've been here regarding the availability of the latest data, it certainly indicates that these reports provide a valuable service to the education stakeholders here in Indiana. So this afternoon, I'm going to provide an overview of the purpose and scope of these college readiness reports, highlight some of the key findings and trends, and my colleague Sam will talk about policy initiative tie-ins. So the purpose of these reports is to allow us to examine students' college-going and college readiness with demographic, geographic, and academic breakdowns. For example, the reports show college-going rates by race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, by state, county, corporation, and school levels, and by things such as high school diploma type and whether a student took and passed an advanced placement test while in high school. These reports help focus attention on the alignment of K-12 and post-secondary education in Indiana, and obviously help us identify pathways to success. So let's talk about the data. Where is it? From where is it? Who's included? The reports look at high school graduates who enrolled in a post-secondary institution in the school year immediately following their high school graduation. In order to be considered enrolled for the purposes of these reports, the student must be a degree-seeking undergraduate. And by degree-seeking, we mean pursuing a certificate, an associate's, or a bachelor's level. And they have to be enrolled for at least the equivalent of one semester. So for our most recent reports, we took the 2012 high school graduate data provided to us by the Department of Education and matched it to enrollment data that we had on hand that was submitted by the public institutions for the 2012-2013 school year. We also used 2012-13 enrollment data from the National Student Clearinghouse to provide us with a picture of those students who attend private, proprietary, and out-of-state colleges. From this data match, we determined a 66% college-going rate. Now, the college-going rate is one of the key indicators we track with the College Readiness Report. Data show this rate is slightly up from the previous year. It was 64% the previous year. But overall, it's held steady at an average of 66% since 2008. Furthermore, the college type or sector enrollment pattern has also holding steady, with approximately half of high school graduates attending Indiana public institutions and 15 to 17% attending other institutions in or out of state. I wanted to point out here that of the other percentage, half of those are Indiana private nonprofit institutions. Now this slide is a snapshot of the first page of the statewide report data that is included in your handout. Here we break down the overall enrollment pool into various demographic and academic subgroups, such as high school diploma type or 21st century scholar status. So at the top of the page, for example, we can see the difference in college going rates for those students earning an honors diploma versus a 440 diploma versus general. 92%, 63%, 26%. I'm not going to go into detail on these numbers here, but we note overall a slightly positive or at least neutral trend in each of these categories. The data at a glance handout gives you a better sense of how these various categories are trending compared to the previous year. Now for the rest of my presentation, I will focus on some additional key indicators of college readiness that are based solely on the data submitted to us by Indiana public colleges. For next year's reports, we expect to be able to include data from the Indiana private institutions. But for now, it is important to remember that we're referring only to the public slice of the pie for the three indicators of college preparation, program and enrollment detail, and freshman year performance. For the college preparation indicator, we looked at whether students were required to take at least one remedial course their freshman year, and whether they successfully completed the remedial coursework. Note that remediation needs are identified, they're defined by the public institutions, and different institutions have different ways of identifying those with remedial needs. Remediation covers English and language arts, reading and or writing, math, or both subjects. And we know that students needing remediation are less likely to persist to sophomore year and graduate on time. Bottom line is that approximately a third of Indiana high school graduates attending Indiana public colleges require remediation. And we estimate the cost of remediation overall is about $78 million per year in tuition funding, financial aid, and direct state subsidies. Yes?
Have you ever done a study that compares the number of students or the number of non-Indiana students, non-Indiana residents who need remediation coming to Indiana universities?
I'm not aware that we've done such, but it'll be on our list to look at. Thank you. Now, on an encouraging note, the data suggests that remediation needs declined since 2010 for all race and ethnicity subpopulations. For example, remediation needs for Black students declined from 57% to 50%. For Hispanics, it fell from 45 to 36%. And for whites, remediation needs declined from 30 to 25%. Another way to look at remediation is by diploma type. As this graph illustrates, diploma type matters. A greater percentage of students with a general versus a Core 40 diploma had to take at least one remedial course their freshman year. The graph also illustrates modest improvement in college preparation levels, as slightly smaller percentages of 2012 high school graduates with a general or Core 40 diploma required remediation. So for example, we look at the Core 40 and it fell from 41% to 38%. Now, regardless of diploma type, math continues to be the biggest remediation challenge. And based on this graph, you can see that for each diploma type, at least 80% of remedial students have to take math. I also wanted to note that of those students who take remedial coursework, about 70% of them actually end up earning the credit. So another indicator covered by the college readiness reports is the degree program and enrollment status of students. Are students going to college full-time? At what degree level are they entering college? So we identify students as full-time as those who are enrolled in 12 or more credit hours their entry semester. Part-time, or of course less than that, their entry semester. And the obvious, no doubt, is the full-time students are much more likely to graduate on time than part-time enrolled students. But we had this discussion throughout the day that 12 hours is not quite the same as on-time graduation rates of 15 hours, and I'll get to that later. Another thing that we're looking at is degree type or area of study. And again, this is based on the student's entry semester. So one trend that caught our attention was the effective doubling of the number of part-time students since 2008. It increased from 10% to 20% of those high school graduates attending Indiana public colleges. Now the increase in the number of part-timers can be seen for all diploma types. Of course, it is the 9% increase in part-time Core 40 recipients that accounts for much of the upward trend overall, since the majority of high school graduates attending Indiana Publics earn a Core 40 diploma. The data also show that there are more part-time students at both the bachelor's and the associate's levels. The darker areas on this donut chart indicate the percentage increases in part-time students, with 2008 data represented by the inner circle, moving outward to 2012 data on the outer circle. At the associate's level, the percentage of part-time students increased roughly 10%, from 24% in 2008 to 34% in 2012. For bachelor's, the increase was approximately 5%, from 2% to 7%. Now, the more defined wedge shape of the associate's degree section as a whole, everything in blue, also illustrates a 2 to 3% increase in the total number of students pursuing an associate's degree track. Not included in this graph are the certificate earners or those who are unclassified. And these represent 1% of the high school cohorts of certificates. The other 2 to 3% are unclassified. Now, a final key indicator of the college readiness reports is freshman year performance. We look at credit hours earned and cumulative GPA of freshman year. Now, under credit hours earned, we know that most degree programs require 60 or 120 more credit hours, depending if it's associates or bachelor's. And you've heard over and over again today that we recommend at least 15 credit hours each semester, or a total of 30 at the end of the freshman year for on-time completion. For cumulative GPA, this represents the GPA at the end of the freshman year on a 4-point scale. And students with higher freshman GPA are more likely to persist to sophomore year. Now, the data show that the average credit hours earned freshman year continues to fall below the on-time rate of 15 credits per semester, or 30 per year. Right now, it's sitting at about 21 credits. I want to point out that this average on this chart includes full-time and part-time students, which helps provide a more complete picture of where we are overall in terms of moving toward an on-time college completion track. But it's worth noting that for full-time students, even then, the average falls below the 30 minimum, what we recommend. They're at 24 credit hours by the end of their freshman year. The GPA data suggests slight improvement overall. Of note, it's important that we did not include the 2008 and 2009 GPA data because it was incomplete. So I did not include that here. So to summarize, data for 2008 to 2012 high school graduates suggest that college going rates and college sector enrollments are holding steady overall. College preparation levels are showing signs of improvement. Remedial needs have decreased for all race and ethnicity subgroups. And more students are deciding to go part-time, and academic performance is improving slightly. I'm going to turn it over to Sam.
So to think about the policy initiatives the state and commission have been involved in recent years with respect to readiness, I think there are 4 issues that maybe we've talked about less than 15 to finish, or our degree, our credit completion requirements from HEA 1348, both of which are important pieces of the puzzle with respect to improving freshman year performance in making progress toward on-time completion. You've probably heard me talk more than you care to, and certainly more than I care to, about the new college-ready standards that our state has adopted in April. The State Board of Education and the Education Roundtable are also working on the development of an aligned assessment to those new standards. And I think that all of us in education policy making have high hopes at least, for these standards and assessments to improve the readiness of students when they get to college or when they enter the workplace. House Enrolled Act 1005 from last year, for 2013, requires the Commission and other groups, the Roundtable, the Department of Workforce Development, and the Department of Education to work on a strategy for identifying remedial needs of students while they're still in high school. So we should expect that as we continue to implement HEA 1005, that we will have maybe a more robust effort at the high school level to remediate students and thereby lower the cost to the state of remediation and promote more general readiness for college. Commissioner Lubbers is co-chairing a panel of the Indiana Career Council focused exclusively on studying Indiana's Core 40 diploma and other high school diploma types, with the expectation that there will be some recommendations to the State Board of Education to make some modifications to the Core 40. There are lots of questions about how well the Core 40 prepares students. You can see it in the data. Quite a number of what should be expected to be college preparatory students need remediation when they get to college, and the questions really revolve around, are the things in the core, all the requirements of the Core 40 matching college's expectations of readiness? Are they matching employers' expectations of readiness and preparedness for the workplace? So that work began this week. And our continued implementation of, in Ivy Tech and Vincent's continued implementation of co-requisite remediation and new math pathways, including extending into the fourth year of high school, should prove fruitful for preparing students on the math side, at any rate, for college. So we'll take any questions.
I did want to point out that this is the second year we've done more expansive college readiness reporting, and we have had it posted on our website. We do have plans in the future for expanding the scope of the reports, and it also including more of the trend line data out there for public availability.
In one of your early slides, and I don't think we have those all slides in front of us, but you broke out a variety of categories with regard to people going to college. You then want to show some data on materials as to who did remediation, who didn't, how they passed, et cetera. You have it broken down also by where they went.
Oh, by which college?
Yeah, is this all just Indiana public colleges once we get beyond this slide?
Correct. So beyond the college going rate, which is highlighted in the first few slides, everything else after that is only focusing on.
So we don't know that at the Indiana private colleges or at the other private colleges, what percentage did remediation, what percentage were in these ethnic groups that performed at one level or another.
Right, and again, I think we hope to be able to include that data for Indiana privates as of next year. We're working with the ICI and getting that data with their member institutions submitted to us just the way it is from the publics. So that's an exciting.
Was remediation high enough then?
Oh. I don't know.
I'm joking, that's where Chris.
Yeah, not a basketball team.
No, Jerry.
Do we have, or could we have, data that show any increase or decrease in the overall college going rate in relationship to the size of the population? If the population of Indiana is getting larger, maybe the cohort of college-age students would be even larger than growth in the total population. How do those figures compare? Are we mining as much as we should out of the relevant age population?
We're looking currently only at the data provided to us by the Department of Education. So, for example, in 2012, it's anybody who graduated with a diploma in 2012. And that number, or the total number, is 68,000 something.
You still talk about the university high school students.
I'm talking about the university high school students, but also the population of the universities in Indiana, both public and private. What I'm thinking of is that we would assume that the college going rate in a global sense is going up. That is, if we graduated 60,000 students in 2005, and we would have enrolled in the universities maybe 30,000 total, someone out of state, so we would get a certain number. And then it would be good if 10 years later we had a little bit of an uptick in the number of high school students graduating that were in Indiana, then showed up with a much larger enrollment of first-year college students.
We haven't looked at that data in that sense. I think there might be a way we could do that. I'm making notes.
Is there much variation between the colleges? I mean, some have more than others. I mean, substantial, or is it fairly close?
I believe on the second page of the statewide report, it provides a breakdown of percentage of those who go to each.
Okay.
In response to Jerry's comments and others, we keep, this is a much better report than last year, which was a much better report than the year before, but there's still so much opportunity for us to continue to drill down even more. You know, what is the state population? What is the population of the high school graduating class for that year? The challenge, of course, is you're talking, you know, takes people time to get through the system, and so it takes 1 year. A trend does not make on these things. So I think there are some numbers that I think are especially important to us in terms of the charge of the commission. I certainly think this remediation number and our ability to continue to try to show some improvement in that in the context of the percentage of people who are going to college and what they're doing, and as well as the overall college going rate. You know, while it was up a couple percentage points this time, as Stacy said, you know, that kind of brings us back to where we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So, and then we know we're going to have there was a period of time when a lot more people went to college around that 2009 period. Some of them quit and then went back into work. All the implications of the economy at the same time. These are the nuances of these kind of reports that are hard but worthy ones for us to consider. But just as a way of saying, in all the work that we're doing on career and college readiness and our partnership with K-12, this is probably the report that gives us the best opportunity to work with our K-12 partners. And in a way that's based on data, and as Stacy said, the superintendents and the principals who get this by their school, not just the school district, they get the information by school, actually are using this information to drive curricular decisions, and it's been very helpful to them. So it's a great effort. It's been one way to actually, you know, bring Stacy into the Hoosier way very quickly, as she's had to as she's had to work on this, and she's done a great job. So thanks, Stacy. We're going to say thanks for the work you've done on this.
You know, I love, I'd love to see this by school.
Well, I was going to say that we have a schedule here on page 3. That should be carried on out.
No, I'm talking about my high school.
We provide by high school. We don't provide that statewide because some of those are suppressed areas because the numbers are so small and they're identifiable. So we provide it. And Stacy, you'll have to tell me how much of that we can provide at a disaggregated level and how much by FERPA or the suppression of numbers were restricted.
Right, so you know, the basic rule of thumb is if the bottom line population you're looking at is less than 10, any calculation based on that number is going to be suppressed. So a lot of your smaller corporations, smaller schools, the data that's out there, the reports that are out there for those schools posted on our website have little asterisks in many of the different cells on the report.
We can see it by high school
Yes.
on your website.
Yes.
Yeah, on page 3, we have a schedule here that shows total enrollment in public colleges, which is really a market share, I think, for each of those schools. What would be interesting is then to put the data after that.
Like the remediation.
Yes.
Exactly, remediation, and with all of the data we have before for the whole page before, so that way by school you have a much better feel for what's happening to where people are going, and then how that may feed graduation rates or persistent rates or other things later on. Because there is a relationship, I suspect, among those. We don't see them here. In fact, I don't really know that schedule for me doesn't do anything unless it has more standard data.
We do provide that data to the institutions themselves. I think there's a little bit of hesitancy in putting comparative data side by side for the institutions on these types of information, even though we do have it.
But we don't get the graduation rates at the end, and then we're criticizing, and unless you look at the discredited data, you really can't tell what's happened. And that's going to be available to the public pretty soon for everybody anyway.
Yeah, I think it'd be very helpful. And Stacy, particularly in the context of
the conversations we've had with President Bradley here. We know what ISU's incoming class looks like. It would be really helpful for us to appreciate the extent of his challenge.
Yeah, I don't think the institutions, I'm going to speak for them, but they're not going to, showing the number of students who need remediation when they show up at their campus, that's a part of the demographic of theirs. Showing, who successfully passed a remediation course or what the grade point average was. I mean, that's, I think, sort of user-friendly data. It's not a ranking of institutions by success. It's more a reality of the demographics they have. So I think we can work on some of that, and it brings a fuller picture. We'll certainly work with our colleges and universities to make sure we're doing it correctly. But thanks.
Being on a school board for quite a few years, I think math, we've gone through, at least when I was on that school board, at least 2 occasions where they decided to drastically change the way they taught math, the new math. And then there was not too long ago, they talked about eliminating multiplication tables. In our school district, they did it for 2 years and then quit. So I think we have been kind of going back and forth and not really concentrating on it. There's been too much experimentation, I think, in math, which might explain the reason that 80% of it's math.
And that would certainly focus more K-12 and higher ed in that pathway.
Dennis?
Sure. Yes, Stacy, welcome to the commission and welcome to Indiana. Your perspective would be really interesting to me. Number one, because you are a transplant to this area. And number two, which is probably number one, because you have spent so much time looking at this data. So, based upon your perspective, based upon your study of this information, and we just have the opportunity to just really kind of get for the first time. One of my favorite questions, what tends to bubble up in your mind as we try and summarize this? What bubbles up in your mind as kind of maybe observations or areas of points of high interest or curiosity, or this is something that just kind of resonated with me as I went through the data and as I kind of think through this. What kind of comes to mind for you, and what kind of thoughts or ideas or suggestions do you have based upon what comes to mind?
I think one thing that jumped out at me as I was looking at the trend data was realizing that a lot of changes have taken place in recent years in the K-12 arena. It would be, again, not making causation remarks, but with the shift away from general to Core 40, for example, and looking at 2010 as sort of the baseline moving forward, it would be interesting on many different fronts. And I think in tying into some of the policy initiatives that Sam touched on, I think it will take us a while to really capture the effects of that, I think, in any sort of the data that we have. But that to me is what's interesting. As an outsider coming in, I think there's a lot happening in Indiana, and that's one of the reasons that it attracted me to this position. I think there's just so much going on. But like anybody else, we have a hard time kind of wrapping our hands and heads around the data. And I'm excited. I think it will be very interesting to see where the private institution data will lead us as well. But just off the top of my head, these were some areas of interest.
So regarding Core 40, are you saying that you're impressed that that's been a good move to strengthen the standards? Increase to a Core 40? Are you seeing more people going in? I guess I'm trying to understand what your point is regarding Core 40.
Actually, what I was saying is that in 2010, which I believe is the year that we made the shift, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I think moving forward, it will be interesting to see from there where we go. Because it's hard to make comparisons in a way because of the default policy and how it really shifts the system overall. So looking at the numbers, it's a little bit more difficult to make comparisons. That makes sense.
Any other questions for Stacy and Sam? Thank you very much. Excellent data and report. On Tuesday, we added a voting item to our agenda to authorize staff to enter a contract agreement with Inside Track, supported by private grant funding, to provide college success coaching services to 21st century scholars participating in Indiana college campuses. This was discussed in our working session this morning. May I have a motion? Move. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We have one more thing here. We also discussed the fiscal year 15 spending plan in our working session and added it to today's agenda for approval. May I have a motion?
So,
Motion and a second. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. There are no academic programs or capital requests on our agenda today. You can find more items starting on page 33 of your agenda book. And let's see. I just want to say good luck to Hannah and to Jason. Again, thank you for your time with us. Welcome to Sarah. Congratulations to Mike Smith for your award as one of the finest institutions on earth. Thank you.
Harvard doesn't get that.
Thanks to the Commissioner Lopez and her staff, and to Indiana State again for all the hospitality and information we received here. Our next commission meeting will be August 14th in Muncie, Indiana, and there's a couple things scheduled.
Pulitzer for DePaul University. So it is a remarkable honor. And so I just think it's worth taking a moment to just kind of put it in that perspective. That is a tremendous accomplishment. So congratulations. And I know your speech was outstanding, so I would love a copy without you having seen it. Look forward to it.
Thanks. If there's no other business, we're adjourned.